Hello beautiful people, it's Sindafam. Welcome to the channel. Today we're back again with another video from Piers. We're going to be checking this together. Let's check it out.
Yeah. Amala, I want to come to you, but I want to play a clip from Stephen A. Smith. This is where he's calling out people who say he's on the right because he's been criticizing Democrats. Let's take a listen.
No surprises. You're just continuing to piss me off. Why? Because every time I make a comment that's critical of the Democratic Party or the left, I get accused of being a pundit for the right. I voiced my concerns about Joe Biden and his ability to serve as second term as president. Then Biden stepped on the debate stage in late June and revealed what many suspected. He embarrassed himself. The White House and the Democrats eventually switched to Vice President Kamala Harris when he stepped away. I pointed out my concerns with the campaign and the Democratic Party along the way, and many of you wanted to accuse me of being a voice for the right.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it inexplicable that someone like him, who's so smart, can pass genuinely constructive criticism about why Democrats got it wrong, and immediately he has to be branded a right-wing headbanger, and that's the only reason he's doing this, when in fact a bit of serious introspection from the Democrats is obviously massively overdue. What do you think of it, Amala?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with your characterization. I think this is the big part of why they lost this past election. And it's this sort of dogmatic fervor that they have for everybody to toe every single part of the ideology that they represent. And I had a very similar experience. I used to be an extremely radical leftist. I was working for a left-leaning organization, organizing students to work on all of these different woke campaigns that were circulating at the time. And as soon as I started to question the narrative or question the fabric of the ideology I was pushing, I was immediately, thrust out into the open to sort of explore these ideas and figure out maybe I'm on the wrong side here, because I was with a group of people that were claiming to be tolerant, but as soon as you have an ounce of skepticism, they are ready to push you aside and label you as far right. And I think much to their dismay, what this is going to create is a group of people that feel so isolated that they are willing to indulge in right-leaning ideology, what they would characterize as far right, but at this point it's just, reasonable common sense. And as they are abandoned by their side, they're going to look to others and they're going to be accepted because we are able to explore. We are actually promoting skepticism.
Yeah.
Exactly. The left gets offended when people don't share the exact same views. They push people away. And then when somebody tilts towards, or people tilt towards the side that is more reasonable, then they find it a problem. Why is that? They think you're not supposed to have disagreement, or you're not supposed to think freely. It doesn't work like that. And lots of the time, people, when they are they drift away from the left, they resonate towards the right or common sense, and they find out that okay, there is more accepting or willing to accept and have differences of opinion and still come on a common ground. Regardless, everybody is not supposed to agree on the exact same issue or the exact same topic, but the essence is share your opinion and let someone else share their own opinion, and then understand why the person think that way. But the left is not that open-minded, and this is where they have a problem. And this is the reason why this election itself was an eye opener, because lots of people saw them truly and be like, wait, how long or are they going to continue doing this, or why are they still here? Because I mean, some things were not making sense, and people started to question those things that were not making sense. And you're not wrong if you start questioning things that were not making sense, obviously.
Just want to echo what a lot of you guys already said. This past week has been harrowing for me. This Saturday, I went on Fox and Friends and I said that Democrats have a stench of loser hanging over them.
Yeah.
As soon as I said that, there were boycott campaigns against me, unblock, unfollow campaigns. I lost 40,000 followers.
Really?
In 4 days. People have called me the W word. I don't know what we're allowed to say, but you can fill in the blank.
We're uncensored. No, say it. Say it. Say what the word was.
Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Well, they called me a whore. They called me the C word. They asked for me to be deported. And you can just search for my name in those terms on X and you'll see a bunch of them. So, all these so-called Democrats, the party of inclusion, the party of diversity, masks off. And it's even worse because they pretend to occupy the moral high ground. At least with Republicans, they are who they are. But with Democrats, they pretend to be, so loving and caring and embracing of diversity. But all of a sudden, when I dare to utter any criticisms of the goddess, Kamala Harris, I get ostracized. Me, after having raised tens of millions of dollars for the party. And I'm being called a grifter when all along, all these years, I've said on TV, I've said to the press, I'm a conservative Democrat. This is not a switch for me. This is just me. This is who I've always been.
Yeah.
And also, my donors are pissed. They raised $2.5 billion across Super PAC in the campaign. It's my responsibility. It's my duty of care to ask what the hell happened with that money? Why did we spend it? Why did we spend millions of dollars on five-star hotels for campaign staffers? Why did we spend $500,000 essentially bribing Al Sharpton moments before he interviewed Kamala? These are legitimate questions, but no, in the cult, you can't ask questions.
Yeah.
And leaving the Democratic Party or even questioning the Democratic Party is like leaving a cult. It's terrifying.
Yeah, Dave Rubin. I mean, that's actually really unpleasant to listen to, isn't it? I mean, the idea that a woman who her only crime was to try and raise money for a pretty hopeless candidate, and obviously that didn't work. But the idea that immediately she raises criticism, legitimate and in my view entirely correct criticism of the party, she is abused in that kind of horribly misogynistic and disgusting manner. What does that tell you about where we are?
Sure. Well, I would say, Piers, we have a living, breathing example of that happening on this panel right now, which is that what she just illustrated there is a bunch of attacks on her character and her behavior and saying awful things, and you can describe them as misogynistic and all those things. Look at everything that Cenk just said to me. These are just attacks, not on my beliefs, but on my character, which again, he couldn't illustrate one thing that I say that I don't believe. I woke up very early to the excesses of the left, what we now know as wokeness. I came out against identity politics, and I wanted to return America to what it was founded on, which was individual liberty and judging everyone by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. The progressive movement is wildly attached to something that brings everyone back to ancient hatred. So when you leave the left, as both of the ladies just pointed out, you will get unending hatred, usually having nothing to do with what you believe or you say. And again, I would just have anyone rewind the video and listen to the nonsense that Cenk said about me to prove that it still exists.
Well, Cenk, I mean, you did launch a very aggressive ad hominem attack on Dave Rubin off the top, which was your decision to do that. But in relation to his specific question, Cenk, can you say one thing that Dave Rubin believes in today that you don't think he believes?
Donald Trump has YMCA. Isn't there a firefighter in there? There's a cop and an Indian. I'm not sure.
Hold on. Look, there's a couple of super important things to say here. First of all, in answering your question, look, Dave doesn't believe in any of the positions he believed in. Before he thought he believed in affirmative action. He believed in this. Okay, affirmative action. And now he says it's the worst thing in the world.
Affirmative action. I evolved. I used to believe in identity politics because I was a progressive like you.
You asked me to say.
Yes,
Why can't he
ask me to name something you changed on? I named it.
You're telling me I don't believe what I'm saying right now. You're calling me a sellout.
Did you believe the Russian propaganda you were paid for?
Oh, you are an utter
Did you believe the
buffoon.
Russian propaganda you were paid for?
I was not paid, Cenk. I was not paid for
$100,000 a video.
Oh my God, you clown! I would recommend anyone look into that to find out a bit more on that. Cenk, how much when you took $1 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg? What did that do for you?
And did I change my positions at all? Not 1%. Not 1%. Okay, can I just address the core of the problem here?
What position do you think I hold that I cannot explain my beliefs on?
Jeffrey Katzenberg is in favor of... Okay, Jeffrey Katzenberg is a good guy, but he's in favor of Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. I was against all three. What part of that is unclear? So look, Piers, there's three different...
Okay, but hang on.
I've got a question. Why is the left always afraid when people disagree with them or disagree with their views and switch to cancel culture? Like, automatically, lots of people be like, wait, what is going on? Especially people who are left leaning and just decide that they just want to question or they just want to think differently and say, wait, why is this like this? And automatically is a switch, and they believe you're a sellout. They don't believe that you're supposed to question, you're just supposed to follow. And this is the exact same thing we keep talking about here on this channel. Talk about people who are always um or who are control freaks, or who always want to be in power, because what they know is that you don't have to question, you just have to follow just exactly how they tell you to. And exactly, just one dare moment of you, or one moment, slight moment of you trying to question something that is not sitting well, then it becomes a problem. Because exactly, it's just a facade, this inclusivity, diversity and whatnot. Because explain to me how you say you're so inclusive, and then the slightest moment you prioritize one person or one party over another, or if somebody don't share the exact same views as you, then you start naming names instead of attacking the conversation. You're attacking the person's character. Like, make it make sense. Why do they always switch? This is why they keep losing people to the right, because they are the ones that are actually pushing people away. Let me know what you think.
Politics for a second.
Cenk, here's my point. The point Dave Rubin is making is, why shouldn't he be allowed to go on an evolution of his views? And why does that mean that right now you can say to him, as you did, you don't believe anything you're saying or believe now, when actually it's completely possible that he 100% believes everything he now says because he's changed his mind? Why can't he do that? And why don't you believe him?
I think that the left is scarred by people like Dave Rubin, who had a complete change. For example, Tulsi Gabbard goes from total progressive to total right-winger. On the other hand, RFK Jr. didn't go to a total right-winger. He still believes the things that he believes about the environment, about housing, about corruption, etc. So you have to be able to distinguish between the people who are doing it professionally, as I hate the word grift, but whatever it is that you want to call it, and the people who have genuine disagreements and genuine nuance in their opinions. So, for example, guys, there's three different branches of each party. There is the radical right, radical left, there's the populist left and populist right, and then there's the establishment of both parties. I despise the establishment with every fiber of my being, and I've been doing that same exact program for over 22 years, longest running show in internet history, and we've never wavered on that. But now the radical left, unfortunately, is doing what you're worried about, Piers, that the minute that they see anything where you say, I agree with the right, when they agree with us on something like anti-war, they go, oh my God, hold on, let me finish the thought. Let me finish the thought. And what people then say is, oh no, he's going to pull a Dave Rubin, because these guys get paid to go fully right-wing and then they'll throw their own people under the bus. So they'll pick a gay guy like Dave to throw gay people under the bus. If you see me going after Muslims, if you see me going after people that I've always supported, then you have an issue. But part of and this is not a pivot, guys. We've been fighting the radical left for 2 straight years now, because they say absurd things like, hey, if the right wing agrees with us, we shouldn't do it anyway. We had somebody leave the network because they said, everyone on the right wing is racist. If you agree with the right wing in anything, even if it's things that we agree on, that makes you racist, and it hurts black bodies.
All right.
See, that's absurd. Yeah. That's insane.
Of course it is. I mean, the irony is that you and Dave Rubin probably agree with a lot more than you're prepared to ever admit. You just don't think his views are sincere because he's changed his mind on a number of positions. By the way, I used to think I was liberal.
It's not just that, Piers. He lied about us 20 times over.
I have nothing in common with modern woke liberals. Zero. Let me bring Dave Smith back in. Let me bring Dave Smith back in. Dave, look, this is part of the problem, it seems to me, is that actually, if people stopped the ad hominem stuff, they could find a lot of common ground where I think there's been a very rapid repudiation of a lot of the nuttier progressive left stuff. And you're seeing America actually through Trump, albeit through he has his inflammatory rhetoric, but you're seeing America, I think, coming to a far more centrist place, actually, which is why he's managed to attract people from all different walks of life. I think that's what's going on. And you're seeing the people on the extremities beginning to look more and more irrelevant.
You know, a lot of times it's about how we use these words and what they actually mean. I'm not sure that centrist is the right word, but I do think, to your point, if you have people who call themselves liberals and they are blatantly opposed to free speech, which there are quite a lot of. This has been very normalized over the last 10 years, really over the last 8 years. I don't mean to drive this into semantics, but what you're describing is not liberalism. I mean, this is just, and in a similar sense, like people who are, anti-war or pro-free speech, the idea that that's considered like a right-wing position is just nutty. I mean, I think anybody it's like at this point, then these words don't mean anything. I think that in many ways, whether you call something centrist or radical depends on the current environment, right? So like if you were in the middle of Adolf Hitler's rise in Nazi Germany, it would be a pretty radical position to believe in like Jewish rights. That today in America is a very normal centrist position that almost everyone agrees with. So what Donald Trump, again, I think the more correct framing here is the establishment versus the dissidents. And if you think about, everybody loves to brag about a convert. So when Dave Rubin goes from being kind of a progressive to being more of a classical liberal, everybody who's in that classical liberal camp loves that because they're like, look, see, this guy woke up and saw the light and he wants to be with us. And then the tendency of people who are in his old camp is to say, oh, no, he's sold out. Look, I'm not reading anybody's mind. I don't know what I treat everyone. I take them at their word. The point is that look, Kamala Harris was bragging about the Republicans that she had supporting her, right? But who were the Republicans that were supporting Kamala Harris? It was Dick Cheney and his daughter. And you know what I'm saying? Like all the establishment Republicans are the ones who joined him. Who did Donald Trump get? Well, they were all of the dissidents. And, Tulsi Gabbard, again, Cenk, I get your point. I mean, she has changed on several of her views, but might that have something to do with the fact that when she stood up and criticized the war in Iraq, the blood-soaked monster who sent her there called her a traitor to her country for that? And so when you have that type of dynamic and you get viciously smeared in that way, what tends to happen is people go to a different group and they start listening to that other group. And maybe they get compelled by some of the arguments. Now, I'm not disagreeing with you that it's also true that you always have to guard against audience capture and perverse incentives and things like that. We all have to fight that force all the time. But it's also true that, I remember because I'm a stand-up comedian, after Louis C.K. got in trouble and when he started coming back, they started insulting the people who were buying tickets to see him. And then they started saying that Louis C.K. only plays for right-wing audiences now. But their definition of right-wing was anyone who wants to buy a ticket to go see him still. So it's just like what happens is that if one group is saying, you're a monster, we hate you, you're a traitor to our country, you should be punished forever, and the other group is saying, hey, we like your point on that, people tend to go toward the path of less resistance and find a new home.
Yeah.
But I would also say there's something deeper there, which is that people on the right are much more willing to agree to disagree. So you can talk to people. RFK, he was running as a Democrat, and what happened? He got virtually nothing but hate from the lefties. By the way, for the record, I debated because RFK was for affirmative action when he was running for president. I'm not. We debated it on my show, so I can clearly lay out my beliefs on that. And he sort of at the end of it kind of admitted that I was right. You don't solve perceived former discrimination with discrimination of today. But what you will consistently find, what I know my good friend Amala has found over the years, is that as you wake up and you leave the progressive plantation, what you will find is people on the right that you're told are evil and scary, like Dennis Prager and Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly and all these people, that you may not agree with them on everything, but they will break bread with you. They will be generous of time and spirit, and you will consistently find that. And there's almost no version of that on the left. That is just simply true. And again, there's a living, breathing example of it right here.
Well, let me bring Amala in on that, because actually, Cenk, I'll come back to you. Hang on. Let me bring in Amala in on that, because I've had the same experience. I find that I've interviewed a lot of people that I always felt were certainly way more right wing than I'd ever been, and I really enjoyed talking to them. I had really good conversations, and I could argue with them about X, Y, Z, and agree with them about this, and this. And the common ground was all the mad progressive left stuff, which most of it was nutty, but it was also based, Amala, on something you've picked up on, which is a denial of truth. And that was the key thing for me. When I saw the progressive left trying to convince me it was perfectly okay for trans women, for example, to compete in women's sport because they're women, when in fact we all know they are biological men, and I respect their fact that they want to be trans women, that's fine. And if they want to be called she or her or whatever, that's fine too. What you can't do is erode women's rights at the altar of this movement. And that is where I realized the left were losing their minds and losing their track on reality. And you said it was basically a denial of truth generally. Was that one of the things that you would say was an example?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had tons of motivations for changing my political ideology and rethinking things. Number one being the gay firefighters. That was the first thing that really started things up for me. But I think it's a combination of yes, with that example that you just used of this trans issue and in Title IX, we're failing to acknowledge how far left the progressive left has moved. And that's a big factor. You know, a lot of people say, I didn't leave the left left me. And you're sort of standing in your positions and watching as people become more and more extreme, and for me, farther away from the truth and reality. Now, you couple that with this feeling of being lied to, in that you've dedicated yourself to this ideology, you've worked to promote these ideas, and then you feel abandoned by this group. So we're building an equation here. On top of that, we have the other things that our panelists have mentioned, the smear campaigns, the attack that you get on the other end of even just trying to raise your hand and get a question in is just absolutely insane. And then you mix in a little bit of the acceptance that you get from the other side as soon as you're willing to hear them out and maybe accept some of their ideas. And you have a wicked combination for somebody really steering themselves in the complete opposite direction when it comes to their ideology. Now, I think if we're going to keep our logic intact, what you have to do is take in all the factors of that equation, sort of swallow it and stomach it for a little bit, and then meet the ideas where they're at, and hope that you're being logically consistent without all these other factors of the acceptance and the smear campaigns and the hatred and the feeling of being lied to, and hope that you're driving yourself closer towards the truth.
Absolutely. Lots of people have a wake up call or an awakening and realize that the side that they've been supporting can turn their back on them at the slightest moment or slightest minute they disagree with them, and discover that the side that they've been hating on or they've been told to hate on is more accepting. Whether you agree or not, you can sit in the exact same room, coexist, and break bread and go on your business or go on the day. And lots of people want normalcy, regardless of your differences or your political differences. People want normalcy. And I always say people always put political differences over top when most of the time the socio-economic topics are not touched or are not talked about, just because people just want to be political correct or want to disagree based on politics. So to them, politics supersedes every other issue. When the social issues are not talked about, economic issues are not talked about, and those issues are being sidelined because of politics. But let's not forget that people can still disagree on politics and agree on socials and economics and other aspects and still coexist. And that is what the right is pushing or is embodying or embodies. And that is why lots of people resonate with the right. And more so, that is the reason why this election too was an eye opener, because lots of people, regardless of their political differences, came together on social issues, economic issues, other issues that were bothering the public, and realized that, yeah, they don't have to always support or agree with what this side is saying in their with politics, but socially they agree on the stance or they see difference on this stance, and it's not wrong or they are not wrong to agree socially. But again, the fact that the left believe that you are not supposed to have thoughts of views or change of thoughts of views or disagreements in certain topics or issues is what is not making sense. We see this like it's a continuous thing in the left or with liberals or typical liberals, and until they change, they are just gonna keep losing people to the right, and the right is gonna keep winning because they know how to like be more like be more open-minded regardless of the case. But I would love your thoughts and your contribution in the comments below. Let's not forget that we can always agree to disagree. We don't have to always agree on the exact same topic regardless, but the essence is agree to disagree and come on a common ground, break bread together and eat, and still coexist or go about your business or go about your day. That's is what makes life more interesting. But let me know what you think. You can share other useful information you think might be really helpful. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that stuff. And until next time, see you in the next video.